I was just say, or like a total asset value, right? Like
Yes.
I'm not
Which
looking for a net worth portfolio number. What?
exactly, which as I like to say often, you can't eat equity, right? Like it's nothing wrong with having a large portfolio, but usually the whole reason people spend time growing a portfolio for retirement is so that it can provide cash. All right, welcome back to the Wealth Independence Podcast where freedom leads and real wealth follows. I am Dustin Bailey, and I'm here as always with Adam Penn. Hello, Adam.
Hi, Dustin.
I kind of took a long pause there, and it made me think of there's an episode of The Office when Andy's trying to. Oh, never mind. It's a whole thing that he's trying to like prep. It's the last season of The Office, which by the way is the worst season of The Office. If anyone's watched season 9, I think it is. It's the worst. But there's a plot thing where Clark is trying to get Erin to read for this news thing, and Andy's trying to coach her, and he tells her she needs to take a longer pause after saying her name, and it's like what he says is good as this like massively long pause, and it just feels so very uncomfortable, like the amount of silence. So yeah, that was a really good intro to this episode, wasn't it?
That was great. I loved it. I think we should always do them like that.
Oh, so how are you? What's happening out in Northern California? Don't talk about the weather.
Did we already talk about I bought a cabin.
Oh yeah, no, okay. So this is a real estate story-ish, right?
Yeah. We haven't talked about this, right?
We have not talked about it on the podcast. Okay. Absolutely not.
Yeah. So I bought a cabin up in the mountains, up in Butte Meadows.
Sounds very rustic.
Yeah, it's a unique cabin. It is worth about what I paid for it, I think. It was it might be worth more, but there's I couldn't see a lot of it. There's so much trash in some of the rooms you can't even open the doors. It's not necessarily like garbage trash, but just like hoarder stuff. Like, why is this here? Like, there was a whole room full of plastic bags, and I don't think they were trash. I think they were literally just plastic bags, as far like a sea of them.
Okay.
I remember that's the one room I really remember. But it's a cute little cabin. I paid the taxes were very back due, so I had to pay those off. That's why it was kind of a quick sale. The seller was going to lose the property in like 5 days if I didn't pay the taxes and buy the property. So I did that, paid the taxes, and then we closed a few days later. Actually, we closed today, which was exciting.
What's the plan for it? You're not planning on keeping it, right?
Nope, gonna clean it up. They're gonna give them 90 days. That was their biggest thing, is they wanted their stuff. Price was a concern, but their stuff was more concerning. And
or we're talking about all the junk that you were saying is in all the rooms. Okay.
Yeah, they wanted 90 days to get it out. So that was the only thing in the contract they negotiated, was the time. I had 60 days to remove their personal belongings.
Okay.
And they wanted 90.
Not bad.
So, yep.
I guess.
Gave them 90, and then we're gonna paint it. We're going to pressure wash it and paint it and patch a few holes on the roof, and we're going to put it back on the market.
I mean, as far as like real estate stories, and you're buying like a hoarder house, if the hoarder wants to clean out their own stuff, that's a pretty good deal.
Yep. I think we're going to put a dump trailer or a dumpster up there and let them fill that too. I don't know how much they're going to want, but yeah, whatever. I mean, what if they want to clean out their stuff? Sure. They got 90 days from today, I guess. So July, August, we're recording this in June, so late September we'll be going into I'd like to get on the market before then, so I'm kind of hoping they move a little quicker. And but yeah, it should be
good.
Should be fun. It was cheap, got good debt on it. Personal friend.
Is there a lot of land? How much acreage is with it?
3/4 of an acre.
Okay, so it's not
huge.
Not a bunch.
No. Okay. 3/4 of an acre. It's on a street with a bunch of other cabins. It's the ugliest house on there. They normally sell for $200 to $350 maybe. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean we paid $35,000, so I think there's a decent gap. I mean, land up there is worth $50.
Yeah.
Once again, I mean, I even told the seller, I was like, if you want top dollar, you should probably let it go to tax auction, and whatever the state gives you will be, probably more than I'm going to pay. And they just really wanted their stuff. So
is that how it works in California?
Yeah, I think in most states, whatever the excess gets returned to them. But the government doesn't have the right to take a gain. They just have to pay off the obligation, and then anything else has to pass through to the seller.
I want to say that's not how it works in Tennessee, but
Where would the profit go?
I think it goes to the state or the local municipality. I actually think it's the local county that gets it.
Worth Googling. I'm pretty sure in California it goes to the owner.
That's interesting. I should double check. I've been to several. I suppose I should know this because I've been to several of those tax sales where they have them every now and then, sometimes a couple times a year. That for whatever reason around here they'll really delay it. Like they had one last year and it was for properties that had been like delinquent since 2023 or something like that.
No, this was 5 years. 5 years.
Okay.
So this was
even though
21.
They have the right, like, I mean, I think pretty much instantly to be able to like turn around and sell it. They typically tend to not, they'll accumulate a backlog and then have a couple of sales and they'll try to get everything through. But we try to buy some properties that way, but everything that it ends up getting bid up, right?
And
like
I think even the person who's having the property taken from them has the right to repay it for like 180 days or something.
Yeah, I think so too. Which is why you typically, and there's a limited amount of, or actually I want to say it's like up to a year here or something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's that way in Georgia, because I know there's like some folks that's what they would do. They would buy delinquent tax houses and then basically put locks on them and just try to make sure that they were kept up. But it was essentially knowing you're going to sit on it for like a year or some amount of time and then actually start the work. Yeah. Well. That was a unexpected diversion from I think the topic that we had planned today, but that was pretty good. Maybe we should do something on tax sales sometime. That's kind of an interesting area of real estate.
I think you and I would need to learn a little bit more about it first.
It sounds like it, right?
I don't think it's a horrible segue into portfolio theory though, because I think it is maybe not the tax sales, but different diversified streams of income. I kind of had lunch with someone today talking a little bit about debt, but yeah, how do you want to start this off?
Well, portfolio. This sounds like a very textbook topic. We're going to talk about Markowitz and the efficient frontier and all those things that I learned about when I was getting my finance degree that I don't remember any of. No, I don't think that's what you want to talk about, right? No. So. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of kick this off. I think the original idea for this was, I guess, earlier this year, and it's interesting as we're recording this, we're going through a little bit of a down, maybe a slight bit of like risk off in the stock market. I mean, this again, just how stocks go in cycles. So when this episode actually comes out, who knows where things will be? But the last few days have been down, and
we'll probably be either a few days from a ceasefire or a few days since a ceasefire. Will be my guess.
So all of who knows what's going to happen long term with that. But that's a whole side topic about how little things like that are going to drive massive moves in the stock market. But I think the big thing here is like we get a lot of people, or you hear often that you need to have a diversified portfolio, right? And that's fine. And for a lot of people, portfolio theory is okay. Well, I'm going to have my basket of 60-40, right? So you're going to be, especially as we get closer to retirement, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and maybe some diversification within that, a few different types of stock funds, or maybe a few different types of bond funds. And it's like, okay, well, we're now diversified, and that's your portfolio theory. And so when stocks go up, the bonds will go down. Then when the bonds go up, the stocks will go down. Whatever. Like that's the idea behind it. But the real problem with that is that when all of those are in Wall Street type products, they're not really that diversified. There's still a high degree of correlation between those. And so the idea of what was originally supposed to be portfolio theory, which is that you have this nice portfolio of things that aren't really correlated and aren't necessarily going to react to each other, in real life, that all breaks down. And when you have a big red day, everything ends up red. Am I boring you already, Adam? You've finally decided you gotta.
No, I just think that there's that chart in Bob's book that I thought would be beneficial.
No, I've got mine sitting over there.
I think I found it.
I'll keep going while you look that up. But no, Yeah, there we go. The correlation table.
Yeah, the private alt correlations between, with a one would be they're highly correlated. And so if you look at like where S&P 500 and private equity has a 0.75 correlation, or S&P 500 and hedge funds has a 0.74. But if you go like, I'm trying to find a high number here, hedge funds and private credit have a 0.82 correlation. And then on the flip side, if you go infrastructure and S&P 500 is 0.09, and infrastructure and hedge funds are actually inversely correlated at negative 0.03. So they would just swing, when one goes up, the other goes down.
Yep.
Natural resources is the ones that I like to look at, right? Because natural resources and real estate is a 0.5.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. They're loosely correlated, but when you have real estate and then you have oil and gas or natural resources, they tend to move independently. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a total tangent, but when you were talking, I thought of that chart.
A little bit. And I'll see if we can throw an image to that or something. I've got my copy of the book over there. I can scan it in or something. But yeah, I think that's the big thing, right? There's a massive amount of correlation, particularly in things that you can buy in a brokerage account that you can go into your 401k. Those things are all very highly correlated. And you in order to get the things, like to actually develop a portfolio that doesn't all kind of move in the same direction, you got to step totally outside of the stock market. So I think people can sit here and get caught up in the finance, again, going back to Markowitz and some of the actual theory behind all of this. But what that misses is that it's very hard to implement that theory in an environment where there's this massive amount of correlation. And you have to step out of that environment in order to truly get the lack of correlation and start actually getting the benefits of having a investment portfolio that is full of stuff that aren't really correlated to each other. And that's one of the big benefits of private investing, right? You've got, Adam, you already mentioned it, real estate and energy, right? Or real estate, or what the book call it, natural resources?
No, it was infrastructure and S&P 500 were incredibly uncorrelated. But
Okay.
yeah, real estate and natural resources.
So that would be an example. I mean, I think to translate that into more concrete terms, no pun intended, because of the infrastructure. Do you get it, Adam?
Funny. I get it. Yeah, you're funny.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you laughing at my joke.
Someone has to.
Yeah, I know. In order to put more real words to this, that would be real estate, like directly owning properties, apartment building, single family homes, whatever, and then maybe owning a oil and gas position, right? And those things aren't like, when you start thinking about the value of those, they're not really going to be directly correlated. Especially if for like the way that we like to do oil and gas investing, where we're owning wells for the long term and it's really primarily a cash flow play. There's almost no correlation, right? Because we're not betting on any sort of interest rates that might sort of be this floor, this the C that's slowly rising or declining all sorts of assets, right? It's really now just about how much cash flow is this thing providing, or what I get in terms of tax benefits. So that's the thing where you really have to step into these things where it's not so much speculative and highly correlated assets that are making up your portfolio and thinking you've now got a well-diversified portfolio. You've got to step completely outside of that and really into the private markets to start getting some of that. And then of course you can play around with all sorts of things. We mentioned the oil and gas, and that's primarily a cash flow play. But again, talking in the energy space, get real estate in all sorts of flavors. We have a private credit fund that's almost purely a cash flow play. You can invest in value add multifamily, which is a little bit of cash flow plus some equity appreciation. And so that's like, when we talk about a portfolio, we're talking about assembling a investment portfolio full of those things, not this, again, what I would view as a more speculative type asset in, say, stocks or even bond funds, right? Where they can all sort of move together based on whatever sentiment is of the day. The idea is that you would have a portfolio full of things that aren't really directly correlated with each other.
Well,
I've been talking for a lot. I'll stop there.
No, you're good. The other thing, I mean, I'm looking through some other charts in this book because I think the charts really draw the illustration, and I'm not going to try to show the book to the camera again here. But if you look at one thing they talk about here on page 102 of this "Invest Like a Billionaire" book by Bob Fraser and Ben Fraser, our friends over at Aspen Funds. Which, if anyone doesn't have it, feel free to send us an email, contact us on our website. We're happy to send you one of these. But the crash performance of raw real estate is the chart here on page 102, and it's talking about the crash of the total drawdowns of the S&P 500, retail, hospitality, office, multifamily, industrial, and land across 3 different periods: the dot-com crash, the Great Financial Crash, and the and COVID in Q4 of 19 through Q1 of 20 of COVID. And the COVID 19 through 20, you see just the S&P 500 came down. In the Great Financial Crisis, you have the S&P having the largest drawdown, and the rest still drew down a lot, but not as much. And .com, you have real estate actually did well, all of those items, and the S&P 500 was way down. And the next thing they show next to here, which is really, I think, the second part of this portfolio theory, is that you're not just measuring which one went down more in a crash and which one went up on correlated to it, but you're measuring risk versus return, right? So what's the risk a certain thing has versus the return you could have? And I don't know how he sources all this. It says CoStar data, but there is a chart here, and it's like as I move my whole mic around, there's a dot graph, and you've got risk on the bottom and returns here, and you've got high returns on the S&P 500, but it's way out here on the risk side of things.
Yep.
And you've got, is that office? That might not be true recently, but you've got office down here with really small returns, 3%, but your risk is down here at a 5%. So as you pair all those things together, I think that's the comment. I'll close the book and stop doing presentations from my desk. It's like the old slide things with the transparencies that you'd show.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Overhead projectors.
Yeah. It's about building a portfolio that does what you want. And I think the point that I would like to make here is that you're building a portfolio to accomplish a thing. You're not building a portfolio to have a big portfolio.
Yep.
You're building a portfolio that produces cash flow. So like for me personally, I built a portfolio that generated cash flow every month that I could pay my mortgage and not have to work a job. I may still do plenty of other things. I'm growing it and growing a business and all these other things. But my goal was simple: be able to live off of my portfolio, not by, live for 10 years of retirement off my portfolio, but live off my portfolio in perpetuity.
Yep. And that's a great transition to the point I wanted to make, is that those are real assets the assets are producing the cash flow, right? You're talking about a portfolio of assets that produce cash flow, not a portfolio of assets that have to be sold in order to create
Liquidate.
cash.
Yeah.
And that's the really big differentiator, aside from just the composition and the correlation of the assets. But when you step outside of the Wall Street world and you start investing in private assets, and you start investing in things that can actually send you real cash flow, the focus changes from being more about how much does this eventually grow to so that I can sell it down, or maybe we'll do an episode someday on the 4% rule. Ideally, in a perfect world, you sell off 4%, and in all the hundreds of thousands of simulations, you'd never actually run out of money. But in real life, it's a lot messier. But the idea being that you don't have to, you grow this nest egg and now you have to start selling off chunks of it. That's the traditional retirement realm. When you step outside of that, you can start building and owning assets that will send you cash, and you still own the asset. Or even better, you own the asset and now you have all your original money back, and you go deploy that into something else. And that's another aspect, or another concept that's not really possible in stock investing. And so again, that's really the other side of this, is that you're not based on your retirement is not really based on this, like, sell it to eat asset or sell it to eat assets, right? You're not planning on selling your assets. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, or like a total asset value, right? Like,
yes,
I'm not looking for a net worth portfolio number. What?
Exactly, which, as I like to say often, you can't eat equity, right? Like, it's nothing wrong with having a large portfolio, but usually the whole reason people spend time growing a portfolio for retirement is so that it can provide cash.
Hmm.
And the whole point is to sell that down so that it can now fund retirement. And I believe the better path is to have this portfolio of uncorrelated things that are all sending you cash. And now you're not reliant on what happens. Even remove the whole idea of the correlation of the value of those assets. If you're not relying on the selling of those assets to fund your life, then the valuation almost becomes irrelevant. As long as the cash flow stays at a level that you need it to, you almost remove the importance of that value. So that's a great thing to call out, Adam. That like the sheer number is not really the valuation of the portfolio is not really the goal. Like, I think the better lens to look at is how much cash flow is that portfolio sending, and then you try to put together the different pieces that can send that from stuff where oil and gas is going to be able to send things kind of maybe regardless of what interest rates going on. Like the price of oil is not really correlated to interest rates, whereas maybe in real estate there's some correlation between the amount of cash flow you're getting and interest rates. I don't know.
I would add a layer there that most of our oil and gas investments have no debt associated with them, right? So in bad debt cycles, we're not at risk of losing the assets or taking a drawdown or whatever that may be. And on real estate, you might, in low interest rate environments, you might be able to take massive advantage of good cash flow or lock in rates for 5 or 10 years. Because once again, you're driving towards for me, it's a monthly cash flow or annual cash flow number.
Yep. Same. Yeah. I only care about the total portfolio value to the extent that it translates into some kind of like actual cash flow hitting the bank account.
And you just want your cash flow to finally get positive, right? You'd like it to
yeah. Yes, I want that number to be black, not red. That's the objective.
What we were in Kansas City a month ago or something. Someone from the front of the room. We were at this event for syndicators and with Aspen Funds, and someone from the front of the room and said, "What's your freedom number or whatever it was? How much money do you want? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal that you want? How much money do you want to make?" And I said, "Dustin just wants it to be positive every month."
Yes, and the whole room got a great laugh at that.
They did.
I appreciate that. But no, I mean, I guess to kind of like close this up, I obviously, Adam and I both have strong opinions on this, right? And like we have intentionally structured investment portfolios and what we do around this idea. And I don't want to suggest that you blow up what you have, but if your retirement and the way that you have been progressing is all based on something that is trying to get that number to go larger. So the idea that you can sell that down, and then you've been sort of moving the puzzle pieces with the portfolio within that. You kind of have to understand that there's this whole other world outside of that, and that when you stay inside that nice little Wall Street circle, there's a high level of correlation that you're simply not going to be able to fully diversify away. And if you want truly non-correlated assets and to truly have a good portfolio of things that aren't going to move with each other, you have to step outside of that. And then you can also start building a portfolio that's not just reliant on the value going up so that you can eventually sell it down and that you can live off of the cash flow. I mean, that's the short version of it. What is it? The Robert Kiyosaki, the rich don't work for money, their money works for them. And I mean, this is exactly what that is in practice. You own assets that put money in your pocket every month. Any closing thoughts?
Not that I can. I mean, yeah, maybe my only closing thought would be that if you do this right, and you're at a younger age, and you have kids or something like that, this becomes not you drawing down your nest egg into retirement, but something you can truly pass on. And if you educate them about the business and portfolio that you have, you can really set up a snowball that will continue for decades to come. Especially if you can teach them to manage it, and you continue to actively manage it. I don't think managing a large. I know people with $40 million portfolios who spend comically little amounts of time managing them. I mean, a few hours a week, and they do just fine. But they understand the assets, right? They're not growing it massively, but they're managing it, right? And they can hand that down to generation after generation.
There's definitely a legacy aspect to real asset investing that doesn't I mean, yeah, there's some of it that might it exists typically at a much larger scale for stock investing, right? When you got family offices that are going to manage public equity investments for the family office. But usually if you've got a big portfolio full of, stocks and bonds, almost always that's just going to get sold off, which is a whole separate issue. And we've actually done an episode. I'll link to it on legacy and some legacy planning and our thoughts on that. But that's definitely another aspect here, that if you own this portfolio of real assets, it's a lot easier to sort of hand that whole thing off to the next generation. It can still continue producing cash flow again, because you're not having to sell the assets. It's just sitting there continuing to send checks every month. Well, good deal. I think that's all we got for this one.
That's it. If you liked it, rate and follow on Spotify, and I don't know, whatever you do on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. You should follow us and like us.
Yes. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. And what was it on Spotify? Follow and
rate and follow.
I would rate positively, I guess. I would assume there's...
Yeah, I think you can do a 5-star rating, but there's a rate button. You got to hit the 3 dots and hit rate, and then that, and you got to follow us. Yeah.
There we go. Well, we would definitely appreciate everybody doing that. If you found this episode valuable, go out and do all those things. Let the computers and the algorithms know that you've enjoyed this, and help it push the message out to more people. We would appreciate that, and try to get the message out to more folks. But we appreciate you listening. As always, thank you so much for being here. We will catch you on the next episode. Just remember, where freedom leads, real wealth follows. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for joining us on Wealth Independence. This show is for informational purposes only and is not financial, investment, legal, or tax advice, and does not constitute an offer to buy or sell securities. All investments carry risk, and investors should always conduct thorough due diligence and consult with qualified professionals before investing. Until next time, remember, freedom leads and real wealth follows.